Does this feel familiar? You sit down to work, you have a plan, you have the time, and suddenly, nothing happens. Your hands are on the keyboard, but your brain feels foggy. You open your phone just for a minute. An hour passes. You get angry at yourself, promise to start fresh tomorrow, and it repeats. Here's the problem. You think you lack motivation. In reality, your brain just switched into a protection mode, and it does this automatically in a split second before you even finish the thought, I should start. Today I'm showing you 5 switches that literally shut off this sabotage mode. But the 5th one is the most important. It doesn't just change what you do today, it changes how your brain reacts to hard tasks from now on. Stay until the end, and you'll never wait for motivation again. Picture 2 students. Both have the same exam in a week. One opens the textbook, feels resistance, and closes it 5 minutes later. The other feels the exact same resistance, but 5 minutes later is already on page 3. The difference isn't willpower, the difference is what happens in the first 15 seconds after that resistance kicks in. Your brain doesn't want you to suffer. Anything that requires effort gets tagged as a threat, and your brain switches into avoidance before you even get to make a decision. This isn't a character flaw, it's biology. And that's exactly why advice like just push through doesn't work. It talks to logic, but resistance isn't born in logic, it's born deeper. To switch it off, you have to speak the brain's own language. That's what these 5 switches do. Switch 1, the 2-minute start rule. Here's what most people don't know. Your brain doesn't resist the task. It resists the size of the task. Write an essay is a mountain. Write 1 paragraph is a pebble. And your brain reacts to exactly how you frame the task in your head. Do this. Take whatever you've been putting off and shrink it down to an action that takes less than 2 minutes. Not clean the room, clear the desk. Not start studying for the exam. Open the textbook and read 1 paragraph. Here's what happens next. Your brain agrees to the tiny action because it doesn't register it as a threat. But once you're in motion, the inertia effect kicks in. Continuing is physically easier than stopping. This isn't a motivation trick. It's a way to bypass the brain's defense mechanism before it has time to react. So now you know how to trick resistance at the moment of starting. But what happens if you've already started and 10 minutes later you want to quit again? That's where the 2nd switch comes in. Because losing focus doesn't happen because of laziness. It happens because of one specific thought that slips into your head unnoticed. Switch 2, the what now question. When you lose focus in the middle of working, here's what happens. Your brain stops thinking about the current action and starts thinking about the entire task. I still have so much left to do. That thought overloads the system, and your brain reacts the same way it would to a threat. It wants to escape. Here's the shortcut. The moment you feel your focus slipping, ask yourself one simple question. What do I need to do right now, this minute? Not today. Not in an hour. Right now. This question does one important thing. It collapses the huge, scary task back down to one small action. You stop carrying the weight of the whole project and go back to carrying the weight of one step. Your brain can handle one step. It can't handle an entire mountain at once. Use this phrase every time you feel overwhelmed. Don't analyze why it's hard. Just ask, what now? And act on the answer. All right, now you know how to start and how to avoid derailing mid-task, but there's one more thing that quietly destroys discipline, more than laziness and distraction combined. It's how you react to your own slip-ups. And the 3rd switch is exactly about that. Switch 3. The one-skip rule. Here's what happens to most people. You skip a workout, a study day, or a task, and your head says, I already ruined it. What's the point of continuing? One skip turns into a week, and a week turns into abandoning the goal entirely. But here's what matters. The skip itself doesn't destroy progress. What destroys it is the story you tell yourself after the skip. Your brain looks for evidence to confirm what you already believe. If you told yourself, I'm a failure, your brain will spend the rest of the day collecting proof of it. Here's the rule. One skip is an accident. 2 skips in a row is the start of a new habit. So the only thing that matters after a slip-up isn't self-punishment. It's one simple question. What will I do next time I'm supposed to show up? That's it. You don't analyze the failure. You don't punish yourself. You just return to action at the next opportunity. Truly disciplined people aren't the ones who never slip. They're the ones who never let one skip become 2. Switch 4. Identity shift instead of goals. Most people set goals like, I want to be productive, or I want to get in shape. The problem is that a goal exists somewhere in the future, while your brain lives in the present moment. Between who I am now and what I want is a huge gap. And that's exactly where motivation falls through. Here's a faster way. Instead of a goal, set an identity. Not I want to lose weight, but I'm someone who doesn't skip workouts. Not I want to be a top student, but I'm someone who sits down to study before I feel like it. The difference seems small, but your brain reacts to it completely differently. When an action is tied to a goal, every skip is just a skip. When an action is tied to an identity, every skip feels like a contradiction of who you are, and your brain starts correcting that contradiction on its own because it craves internal consistency. This is a built-in mechanism, and you can use it in your favor. Try it right now. Finish the sentence. I'm someone who, and fill in the behavior you want to make automatic. Repeat it before every action you'd normally put off. And here's switch 5, the one you stayed for. It's the most powerful because it doesn't change one action. It changes the entire system your decisions are made in. Here's a fact that flips everything. Willpower isn't an infinite resource you either have or don't. It's a finite resource that gets spent on every decision, even small ones. Every time you decide, should I check my phone or not? Should I get up or lie here a bit longer? You burn a piece of that resource. By evening, it's almost always at 0. That's why discipline is so hard to hold on to at night. The solution is to remove the decisions. Set up your environment so the right action is the easiest option and the wrong one is the most inconvenient. Want to work out in the morning? Lay out your workout clothes next to the bed the night before. Want fewer phone distractions while studying? Leave it in another room before you sit down, not after. This works because your brain doesn't spend willpower on the action itself. It spends it fighting the temptation. Remove the temptation from sight, and the fight disappears on its own. You don't need to become stronger. You need to stop fighting battles you could have simply never started. Put it all together. Switch 1 gets you moving in 2 minutes. Switch 2 keeps you from derailing mid-task. Switch 3 stops one skip from becoming a habit. Switch 4 changes who you believe you are. And switch 5 removes the need to fight yourself in the first place. Here's the truth most people never learn. Discipline isn't a personality trait you're either born with or without. It's a system of switches you can find and use in any moment. You just learned how to get yourself moving in 2 minutes. How to stop derailing mid-task with one question. How to keep one skip from turning into quitting the goal. How to shift your identity so the action becomes automatic. And how to rebuild your environment so you don't have to fight yourself every single day. Next time you feel resistance, Don't wait for motivation. Find the switch. You already have it. If this video helped you, hit like. It helps the channel grow. And let me know in the comments which of the 5 switches you'll try first. See you in the next one.